Welcome to American Players Theater Talkbacks to Go. I'm Buzz Kemper, and I invite you to take a walk up the hill with Orange Schroeder and me as Orange chats with director Jim DeVita and actor Melisa Pereyra about APT's production of Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare.
We're going to be talking about Romeo and Juliet, one of Shakespeare's most beloved plays, with Jim DeVita, who is the director of this year's production at APT, and Melisa Pereyra, who is playing Juliet. And I know that Jim has a long history with this play. He actually came to APT some 20 years ago to play the iconic role of Romeo. So I was hoping you could start us off by telling us a little bit about your journey from Romeo to director.
Well, actually, I've been around Romeo and Juliet since I very first started. I've been in 5 productions of the show. I played Romeo in college. Then I understudied him at Colorado. I played Samson and Peter. Then 20 years ago, I got to do Romeo here, my first show at APT. And then 10 years ago, we did the show again, and I played the Prince. And that. So this is I forget how many productions that adds up to, but yeah. So I've been around the play a lot, and so it's kind of special to me because I was telling this story that it's actually the reason why I'm even here at APT and why I'm directing, because I was in Chicago at the time, out of work. And a friend of mine and colleague, Ken Albers, who was the director of Romeo and Juliet 25 years ago, asked me if I'd like to come and do Romeo with his wife, Katie Davis, and we're both 2 short Italians. We look like we came from the same village in Italy. And we always talked about we should do Romeo and Juliet someday. And sure enough, I got the job and I got to come out here, and it was for me it was a turning point in my life. It was the first time meeting Spring Green and working on this beautiful theater outdoors, doing Romeo and with a lovely Juliet, and my wife and I got pregnant with our first child that year. So the world changed that year. I'm thrilled to be able just to be around long enough now to be a director. And there's certain shows, not all shows, certain shows I think you have a deep passion that kind of never leaves you. And something about that first production that we did, and it's not just about the team and the time of life. So it just it marks you a little bit. So I'm just so privileged to be able to now to be around these really young, talented actors that we have to get a chance to do it again.
And how will this production be different from the other productions you've been involved in?
To be honest with you, I don't, as far as, the one onus I took up myself is that I'm not going to try and be different. I'm not going to try and do anything clever, anything fancy. I didn't update it to modern times, which it could be, and it's very valid. It works really well in modern times. But I'm kind of a traditionalist a little bit when it comes to classical work. I like the Romantic era for this. I think I'm a bit of a romantic in my heart, I think, although I would never admit that probably, except in an interview.
You now have.
So I'm pretty, as far as design and stuff, that's very traditional. It's late Renaissance, and I wanted to keep it there. But I think a trap that directors and actors can fall into is trying to be different. And I strongly believe if you just do this play, as an actor, if you do something as authentically as you can't help but be different because there's nobody like you in the world. And I think it's the same for a director. If people come away from this and saying, wow, did you see Jim DeVita's direction on that? Then I've completely failed my audience.
So it's not Jim DeVita's Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, God, I hope not. I hope not. And I'm not so humble. Of course, I want my production, but I really feel my reward, my ego comes from when an audience says, I really love that story, and they got this story really clearly. So I'm not being so humble, I'm certainly not above that kind of ego, but it's a different kind. It's not about, I really feel great when people, particularly around here, say, wow, I never thought I'd understand that, and I did. And that's the best reward I can get. So my job is to tell a story really clearly, and I think to encourage and coach actors to do what they can already do great. And I think my job is just to kind of nudge here and there, encourage, and
I'm sure that every production of Romeo and Juliet, one of the challenges is finding the right Romeo and the right Juliet. Have you ever played the role before, Melisa?
Yes, I have. Never in a full production like this. This is my first time. But I played Juliet in a touring production. It was like a 90-minute version of it. So yes, but this is my first stab at the whole thing, no pun intended.
And you've had a chance to play opposite your Romeo at APT before.
Yes, last year in Liaison, and we're really good friends, and so that absolutely helps the chemistry on stage. And there's a lot of trust involved in doing what we're doing, and it's great that I get to play with somebody whom I get to, I trust. So.
And neither you nor Christopher is 14 years old, I would think.
No, in our hearts, maybe.
Is that a challenge?
We haven't talked a lot about age, and I think I don't know that that's even necessary at this point, because it has to do with growing up, right? More than anything else for me, and the age factor, I think, comes from the excitement and the expectation of something new, and I don't know that I can put a number to that.
And I think that the fact that it's love at first sight is so significant. I mean, that's something that Shakespeare also plays on in Much Ado, which is being seen up the hill this year also. Do you want to talk a little bit about, do we believe in love at first sight now? Is it an outmoded convention?
Oh, gosh, I don't. I can see the 2 or 3 loves that I've had in my life. When I looked across the room, I knew right away. And so I believe in it 100%. I think it's not as theatrical and far from our lives, I believe, as we think it is sometimes. And particularly and I'm not harboring right around the age 14 as specific. I'm just in your teens, your young teens. Think about 15, 16 through 18, 21, I remember. And you see that person across the room or wherever you see them, and there's something different happens. And God, the passions that you have when you're 18, 19, when you can't sleep unless you talk to somebody, you literally feel sick. Maybe I'm alone in this, but I would think a lot of people listening to this would feel the same way. I remember waiting to call when we had telephones and not just flip phones, and you were on the phone for 2 hours, and your parents were angry because there was only one phone in the house. So I don't think it's as far away from our lives as we sometimes think.
Well, and I think that we can see in Leonard Bernstein's West Side Story that those emotions clearly can work in many different settings and many different time periods and are quite universal. And I think it's going to be a play that engages young audiences particularly. And I know that part of APT's mission is bringing school groups out to Spring Green to hear Shakespeare in ways that many of us never got to hear Shakespeare when we were studying these plays in school. Do you have a feeling about the school groups coming?
The 10 o'clock matinees will have a lot of them. This will be Melisa's first experience with those. But it's so wonderful. I think, I did Romeo 20 years ago, and those kids that came 20 years ago at 10 o'clock matinees are going to be coming back now as parents with their children to see your Juliet and Romeo. And it's one of the wonderful things about working out here. These people will come back. And but, yeah, I mean, you could speak to Melisa, but I think not only the passions and the angst of love at that age, but everybody's got something with their parents, too. There's a lot about the older generation, the younger generation in this play, and everybody can equate to that. And the parents, the older audience members, can equate to dealing with their kids when they're teenagers, and vice versa, the teenagers with their parents.
And Melisa, do you think their love would have lasted, or was it an infatuation? I remember hearing Jim say that you have to go into the play, at least as an actor, not knowing the ending.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yes, we would happily ever after, right? Yes, all the way. And we do have to believe that. And I think that's what makes it so tragic that you don't get that. But as an actor, you do strive to 100% believe that this is the best and the only path for you and the only person. Yes.
And therein lies the tragedy. One of the concerns that I've had about the play is the fact that teen suicide is, of course, a concern today, as it has been for many years. Do you think that the way that Romeo and Juliet deals with the suicide pact is something that is imitated by those that read it sometimes?
Well, not to my knowledge. I've never heard anything about that. Obviously, it doesn't promote that. If the play is anything, it's about the lack of communication, the lack of concern and care. And these young people turn to adults for help, and they get bad advice. And so, if anything, I hope people come away like, we really got to talk to our kids more. I really got to talk to my parents. So in that way, I think it's a cautionary tale, if anything.
Yeah, and it's about, it's very impulsive. These young lovers are very impulsive, and they just act and they think that, you know, like we were saying, that that's the only choice that they can possibly make. And I think it's also about just taking a moment to slow down. I think as teenagers, you know, I know I was just always trying to, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? I want to grow up. I want to do all these grown up things, but that sometimes that can get us in a pickle, you know? So about slowing down and being present. And I think if they would have done that, then we would not have this play, right?
Another universal theme, I think, is the rivalry between the groups and the fact that Tybalt and Mercutio hate each other. And is there something that we can learn from that also, and the tragic outcomes that it has?
Well, I don't know about learn from that. I mean, I'm always cautious that I think our job as storytellers, directors, actors is never to teach anything. I think that's arrogant to think that we could teach anything. I think this is my personal opinion, our job is to show these stories. Audiences get from it what they want, and I think we can just observe that this is still going on in the world today. Of course, you look at the troubles between any ethnic communities in the world, and I can name a dozen of them right now, of these kind of ethnic rivalries that go on for generations and generations. And so it's an example of that. Teaching, I would not allow myself to say anything like that. Do you know what I mean when I say that? I think our job is to show things and let an audience take from it what they will.
Let the story...
Yeah,
have
and you
its
take
impact.
Or else if we try and do something too heavy-handed, that's the only message you're going to get. If we do art right, then every single person will take away something different.
And what is your favorite speech in the play?
Oh,
Melisa?
man. I don't know. You know, we just started working on this one a couple days ago, and it's the last one, you know? What if this mixture do not work at all? You know, it's that... You know, the entire second half, Juliet has been acting and saying, you know, I'm 100% committed to this choice that I will end my life if I can't be with this person. And she has the poison, and she has to look at it, and all this doubt and all this fear and all this, the expectation of what happens, you know, after death, or if she takes it, or all that stuff, I think is interesting to me. It's the doubt that creeps in after she's been so sure, which happens to all of us at a certain point in our lives, I think, and especially while growing up, right? We question everything, but not until sometimes it's too late, or, you know, but yes, the last is my favorite.
Jim, do you have a favorite?
Oh, no, I think I'm always fond of the very last speech of the play by the prince, and he has this line where he says, "Where be these enemies?" And it's just that one line. It says, where are you guys? It's just this great line that says, look at what you've done through this hatred and these generations. And it's just a beautiful line. There's a whole speech around it, but that line, where be these enemies?
Right.
Come here and look at what you've done to these two children.
A triumphant end to a brilliant play. Thank you both so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Talkbacks to Go is a production of Orange Tree Imports, Pro Video and Film, and Audio for the Arts. Your host is Oren Schroeder. I'm Buzz Kemper. Our music is by Steve Tibbetts and is used by permission of the artist. Please find us on iTunes and YouTube under APT Talkbacks to Go. Thank you for listening.